Hey, how you doing? Ty Hicks, founder of Mastering Ethical and Lasting Influence and Results Coach. Today I want to be diving into a specific topic with you that I think will be very profound for you, and that is how it is that beliefs are created in the mind. And this has been something I have deeply studied for a long time, numerous years. I've been trying to look for answers to this question. What enables some individuals to have incredibly empowering beliefs that they use to take their life to the next level and serve in a deep and profound way, and what enables some individuals to have beliefs that are completely disempowering when faced with similar circumstances and generates a sort of low quality of life. What just gets people to buy into any idea whatsoever? Because the quality of your life is very much in proportion to the quality of the beliefs that you have about your life circumstances and about what you can do to actually mitigate or change those circumstances themselves. So I just recently finished a book called The Believing Brain by Michael Shermer. I highly recommend it. Very, very well put together. And Shermer is a very seasoned academic who tackles this question in depth. And he looks at exactly how beliefs are constructed and how it is that they're reinforced, and how we grant new evidence in support of them, and what it takes to kind of challenge and change them. And so this resonated a lot with the work that I have with my clients, where somebody walks in and has a disempowering belief that is completely limiting them, and I need to show them how they can expand that and shift that in a purposeful way. So there's another video that you may or may not have seen on the map does not equal the territory. And I highly recommend you revisit that, because that video, we kind of unpack this concept of helping you understand that our internal representation of the world is not equivalent to the world, but rather we create a distorted and shifted and imperfect representation of what the world actually is. And we use that to guide our decisions. It comprises of our belief structures, of our conditioning as to what sort of actions are we going to take in certain situations, as well as sort of our higher values as well. And so once we start to realize that there is more flexibility to this brain than we actually think there is, all of a sudden that opens up a new set of choices for us. And so what I want to do is capture Shermer's basic concept and apply it also to a metaphor that I've used with patients in the past to help describe to you how I believe a belief is formed. So what will happen is, you will have this particular thought. Let's say, let's say you've been struggling to get healthy. And for instance, you have a thought that just comes out of nowhere in your mind that says, I'm never going to be a healthy person, okay? And again, just totally picking this randomly, and don't know how to spell today. Try to. All right, I'm never going to be healthy. So you just have a thought, fleeting thought, and it could just as easily have left the mind as it entered it. But perhaps for some reason you cling to it for a minute and you start thinking on it for a minute. And the metaphor I want to give you is that the thought is kind of like a tabletop. This is my excellently drawn tabletop. And a thought does not become a belief until you reinforce it by giving it some legs. And so you could give it a leg by saying, I've never been healthy in the past. You could also reinforce it with another leg that says, no one in my family has ever been very healthy. You could also reinforce it with a leg that said, it's just too hard to do it. You could have another leg that says something like, I've got bad genes. Something like that. But what happens is this once fleeting thought that you've now clung to, if you grant it supports, all of a sudden now you've got a belief. And now what happens is you go back out into the world, but this is now kind of a permanent, not permanent, I shouldn't say permanent, but it seems permanent. It's a fixture in your sort of meaning map of the world. And so now you're walking around with this thing, and it feels like reality. It feels just as much like actual reality to you as reality itself, because you've made it, you've assimilated it into your own map of meaning. And so the difficult thing is that you gave it all of these supports. And so what I have to do when clients come to me and say something along these lines, I'm never going to be healthy, what I have to do is say, that's interesting. Where'd you get that linked up? And they'll say, oh, my family never really was healthy. And so then I'll have to start asking some questions like, is it really true that no one in your family was healthy? And they'll say, well, this one person was. Okay, so it is true that somebody in your family was healthy. They'll say, oh, yeah, I guess it was. And then they'll say, oh, but it's just too hard. I just can't do it. And I'll say, that's interesting. Is it too hard right at this? Was it, what I'll say is something like, can you remember a time in your life where you did something that seemed too hard, but you did it anyway because it was a must? And they'll say, oh yeah, I can remember this time I had to make this big shift because it was really necessary. It's like, oh, interesting. So it seems like too hard is kind of relative, right? So what I'm doing is knocking these legs out. And if we can knock these legs out, all of a sudden we get to a space where this just becomes a thought again. And all of a sudden we can finally let it just float away and it's gone. So the reason I point this out to you, and the reason I bring up Michael Shermer's work in The Believing Brain, is Shermer talks about what he calls belief-dependent realism. In all of his research, what he has come to find is that the way in which belief works is first, we have a belief, okay? Like a thought, let's say. And then, only once we have the thought or belief, we then go to find evidence for it. Not the other way around. Most individuals think that what happens is we would find the evidence, which was, captured in this metaphor of being the table legs. And then we say, wait a minute, what's a conclusion that we can draw based off of these facts? And then we can create a belief out of that. That's not how it works. And that's what Shermer definitively proves. If you want a more academic explanation, then I'll refer you to his work. But that's simply just not reality. So what happens is you have the thought, and then you essentially decide to make that a belief. And then you grant further and further evidence to it. And now here's the really challenging thing, is as soon as that has become a full tabletop and it's now a belief you're walking around with, whenever you encounter new information that supports your belief, you will gladly assimilate it. And so those legs only get stronger and stronger. However, whenever you approach new information that challenges that belief, then all of a sudden you dismiss it. And it becomes very difficult to have somebody entertain, something that is counterintuitive to what they've assimilated as a belief. So here's my real question to you. What beliefs are you walking around with right now? What are the 2 or 3 guiding beliefs that you have been using to guide your behavior? And then I would ask you to look at those and say, what are the legs of support that are propping up that table of belief? And really look at that. And then say, can I absolutely know that these things are true? And if you do that little exercise, I think what you'll find is that you're carrying around some BS from your past that just has no place in reality. And if you want to keep it there, that's by all means your choice. But if you want to have that level of what I like to call personal freedom, where you're really living life on your terms, then I think what you'll realize is that you can bring a new level of intentionality to that and say, what are the beliefs I can choose now? Because I'm not saying that you should not choose beliefs. I am, in fact, saying that you should purposefully choose beliefs. For example, one person will have a belief that says, I don't know, something along the lines of, the world is out to get me. I mean, I've heard people say things like this. I know you have. Or, I'll never be successful. Whatever. And again, that's something you can reinforce. You can reinforce it all day. You can go out into your world, and as soon as a challenge comes, you can go, oh, look, there it is. That's it right there. World is out to get me. Here it is again. Happened again. Or you could have a different belief. You could change this, and you could purposefully say, you know what? In every challenge, let's actually say in every failure, there is the seed of success. And what you could decide to believe is that whenever you are encountering failure, that you are getting an education in what will get you closer to actual success. So that instead of failure convincing you the world is out to get you, that instead it's convincing you quite clearly that you're getting closer to success. And so every time you encounter failure, you go, oh, hey, there we go. I learned something that didn't work. I'm going after something different. Oh, here we go. This time it actually worked. So now I know that this first time I failed, it actually was getting me here. And boom, now I'm reinforcing the belief. Can you see how both of these are just as real as you make them? That's the whole point here, is what are you deciding to incorporate into your belief structure? Stand guard at the door of your mind and make sure that nothing is getting in that isn't intentional and that isn't serving you. That's my real challenge and invitation to you. So I hope this is helpful to you. And if it is, please share it along with somebody else you think that may get benefit out of it. And otherwise, I'm so excited to see you in the next one.